I have the pleasure to welcome Andrea Polonioli for our next talk. He's a well-established author, or has published many publications in our field. And today I'm really happy that he speaks about a topic that's more on the user interface side and on integrating chatbots with search. Thank you. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here. Let me actually time myself so that I'll make sure to be on time. And so great to be here. And I've been in e-commerce search and product discovery for over 8 years. First at Tuso, which was an e-commerce company acquired by Coveo, and more recently at Coveo, where I'm currently working. And just to clarify the perspective I'm bringing today and the kinds of conversations that are shaping the argument I'm making today. So Coveo is a SaaS platform that delivers search and product discovery technology to brands and retailers in B2C and manufacturers and distributors in B2B. And so today I'm going to make an argument that starts from two premises. The first one being that if we look at the past 12 to 24 months, we see that there's been a surge in e-commerce chatbots alongside search. And the second premise is that we actually see that search itself has been evolving, becoming more and more conversational. So based on those premises, I'm going to suggest that the coexistence of these two systems and interfaces, search and chatbots, is neither necessary nor advisable. One is one-to-many. And so just a reminder, so we all know it, but conversational commerce, conversational search and product discovery have all kind of been talked about, discussed, long-standing promises, voice search dominating by 2020, queries becoming increasingly long, shopping getting conversational. We've all heard it. So many predictions were made. Most of these predictions kind of expired quietly. And the reality is that if we looked at search was not really conversational. So it had amazing features. It was reasonably fast, fairly consistent, one query, one set of results. Of course, there are caveats in session personalization, but quite consistent. And once you know how to search for things as a shopper, quite reliable. However, it was also quite allergic to natural language. And what do I mean? Well, when we're talking about the assessment of search experiences, the Baymard Institute is often a sort of solid reference. And even in 2026, they published findings suggesting that a large number of organizations are still delivering quite suboptimal search experiences across a wide range of intents and queries. So, with feature searches, if I'm searching for like denim trousers that cost less than $150, well, let's say euros here, most likely I'm going to get quite noisy results. And it's not just the Baymard Institute. So there was a paper by the search research team at Instacart that was published a couple of years ago, and was quite interesting for a number of different reasons, but it was also interesting because it was documenting quite thoroughly how even a large organization like Amazon was sort of struggling with query understanding and queries containing price constraints or price anchors, like in the red wine $40 example here, where you have wine red products and products that are quite far from the price anchor in the query. And so search was not necessarily that conversational, but then we also had weird things, chat widgets on e-commerce websites. And there was these widgets that were kind of encouraging a conversation, but there is a bit of a difference between encouraging a conversation and being able to handle master that conversation. And there is a quite good reason why chatbots historically earned a very bad reputation, and it is that they were pretty bad. And so whether it's like Monica Vinader here or Breaks, like B2C or B2B, we can encounter chatbots still today, and it's not always clear what we can do with those widgets. Can we use them to search for products, discover products, or actually just ask questions about a product that we have already purchased? And are we going to interact with that widget, or are we going to be redirected to a human agent? So many questions, but the reality is that they used to be quite underwhelming. And so we had a bit of a Sheila and Charybdis situation with two threats that we had to avoid. We had search fast, quite inconsistent, and once you know how to search for things, fairly reliable, but not really conversational. And we had chatbots that were promising conversations that were not really well equipped to handle. But then things change, so shifting gears. So what happened is that over the past 12 to 24 months, we've seen actually a comeback of conversational commerce, conversational search, and with real momentum. I mean, of course, Amazon launching Rufus, now Alexa Shopping, Walmart following with Sparky. But it's not just them. Of course, Zalando, represented today, was one of the pioneers with the shopping assistant, I think launched in 2023 or something like that. But even Otto, I think today, well represented. I believe that invested in conversation. I think there was a shopping agent launched earlier this year, but correct me if I'm wrong. But it's not just them. We can see that Macy's, Nordstrom, we can see Frasers, Argos, many retailers, quite big ones, are investing in conversational, launch chatbots, even front and center on desktop. And I think there are a number of reasons for that. Stating the obvious, of course, the progress in AI and large language models, or language models, let's say, has been a key enabler, but also the fact that Amazon invested in conversational sent a signal to the market, because very few companies shape downstream strategic priorities in the same way that Amazon does. I also think that, in a way, this is kind of a hypothesis, speculation, but I also think that chatbots kind of proved to be a safer way to experiment with conversational, because they kind of change the latency contract with the shopper. With search, people really expect fast search results. They're coming back immediately, but chatbots are a bit different. So these are hypotheses. But I think that with chatbots, people are more charitable. They actually may interpret a slight delay as a sign of intelligence. So I think that these chatbots kind of represented an interesting way for organizations to experiment with conversational without disrupting, a time-tested user interface like search. And another reason is, from a commercial standpoint, we've seen vendors kind of shifting, pivoting from positioning conversational as a moonshot to actually packaging conversational as a product that they're willing to sell. So for a number of reasons, we have this new breed of chatbot, and they're quite different compared to search. So I mentioned consistency, and so search being quite consistent, but when we look at these chatbots, the situation is quite different. So you can see that I asked the same question to Rufus, and they got 3 different answers, and different in interesting ways. So the first time I got a bunch of questions, a bunch of bullets with questions for me, no products. Second time I got still a bunch of bullets with questions for me and 1 product. The third time a more succinct answer and more products. And now, full disclosure, if you're going to try and replicate this experience now, not with Rufus, but with Alexa Shopping, you're going to find that it's a bit more consistent, but I think that the broader point about these systems being less consistent and predictable still applies. But they're also interesting because, if we compare these chatbots with kind of search, they're kind of broadening the range of intents that are expected to handle. So again, I mentioned the Bamer Institute earlier, and I think also when we're thinking about the taxonomy of search queries, the Bamer Institute provides like a kind of classic, interesting reference. I think they had 12 query types, ranging from exact product searches to things like queries with constraints. And now there is some continuity with chatbots, because actually, based on my experience at Coveo, one of the main reasons why organizations are actually considering investing in conversational is because they're believing that queries with price constraints are not really well handled by the search, and so they're looking for other ways of handling this kind of intent from the shopper. So there is some continuity with chatbot, but there are also some other types of intent. So there are comparisons here. And so comparison is, of course, an important part of the decision-making of the shopper. Like if I'm in a physical store, I may be asking, what's the difference between product A and B? And once you're opening the door to conversational, with a chatbot, you're also expected to handle those types of intents. But there are others, like bundles and outfits. You may be asking for like the outfit for a beach summer party, not just a product, but a bundle. And so new types of intent. And what's also interesting is that the second and the third are kind of intents that used to be handled not by search, but maybe more by recommender systems with comparison tables recommenders or shop the look or complete the look carousels. And so we have chatbots that are kind of stepping into that territory. So we have new types of intents that chatbots are meant to handle, but that doesn't quite mean that the chatbots are doing an excellent job at handling them. So when we look at these chatbots, sometimes they do a fairly good job. I mean, definitely this new breed of chatbots is completely different compared to the chatbots we were used to. But still, not all chatbots are created equal. So some are better than others. So this is Frasers. I believe they launched the chatbot a few months ago. And overall, you can have a conversation. You can be shown relevant products. But then when I was asking, for example, for a comparison between products, the chatbot was saying, I cannot really help you. And it was not just that kind of interaction and query. It was a more robust pattern. And so this is the problem. You're kind of setting expectation, creating expectation that you're not really well equipped to handle. And it's not just about new intents. We also see that there are some old relevance problems that are kind of coming up again in a new interface. So this is Belk. Belk launched their chatbot, I believe, last year. And overall, it's a fairly good experience. But still, you can see that if I'm asking for Ray-Ban sunglasses for men that cost less than $200, and kind of full disclosure, there are quite a few available options that they can sell. But you can see that there is one pair of sunglasses shown there, and the majority of products are actually either very far from the price anchor stated in my query, or they don't really respect the brand preference that I've stated. And it's also not just Belk. This is Macy's. They made quite a bit of noise, so they launched Ask Macy's a few months ago. And overall, again, it's quite a good experience, but still far from optimal, far from perfect. So I was asking for some shirts for men that cost less than $150, and you can see that the first products, or kind of sort of carousel of products, is actually polo shirts. Not completely off, but not quite what I was looking for. And again, it's kind of a robust pattern. So we do see that, looking at Belk, Macy's, and other chatbots, kind of issues with the precision, how precise the suggestions actually look, kind of come up again. And so we do see there is a new breed of chatbots doing interesting things. Still a lot that needs to be done, but again, an interesting new breed of chatbots. But then in parallel, we've also seen search becoming increasingly conversational. And so when we're talking about conversational in the context of search, we have to keep in mind that actually refers to a number of different features, some more cosmetic or sort of superficial, others more interesting. So this is Bed Bath & Beyond, and so they launched, I think, 1.5 years ago, what they call, or Google calls, conversational filtering. And so basically, if I'm on Bed Bath & Beyond as a shopper and I'm searching for a coffee table, I do get a generated question on top of the filtering options, which is asking me, which color I'm looking for. Now, it's an empirical question, but I would say that probably there's not a ton of added value that is coming from this feature to the shopper. Now, Expedia was testing something quite interesting instead. So if we're used to OTAs and their search, it's usually quite a rigid experience, sort of kind of forcing us to not really engage conversationally, but stating the exact destination or location or hotel. But what they were trying to do a few months ago, so they were testing an experience, and you can see find your perfect stay. So they were testing this box where they would actually allow users to express themselves in a natural language, more conversationally, and so that language would be matched against the available filters that would be applied to deliver a more precise set of results. Still, not quite what we are expecting when we are thinking about conversational search. But we've also seen a few other interesting things happening. So, I talked about Amazon and how Instacart was flagging that Amazon used to struggle with queries like red wine, $40. Now, if you test that query today in 2026, you're going to find that it performs much better. But it's not just that specific query, it's a more robust pattern, signaling that they've made interesting investments in query understanding. But also, it's not just Amazon, it's a broader pattern in the industry across many different verticals and organizations. So this is a screenshot from a swim outlet, completely different type of complexity and scale. But still, if you're searching for blue goggles that cost less than $10, you find a quite neat set of results. And I believe that a few years ago, it would have been quite hard to find similar experiences. And it's not just swim outlet, famous footwear is another example. So overall, we've seen an improvement in the handling of these types of more complex and conversational queries. We've also seen that some organizations are experimenting and trying to actually show not just products, but also return some generated answers and advice to shoppers. And so this, for example, Nordstrom, that a few months ago was testing this experience where shoppers were allowed to enter queries like going to Minnesota and need recommendations. And instead of treating that query as a sort of ill-formed type of intent, it was reacting with a generated answer coupled with some products. And it's not really just Nordstrom. This is something we've seen across a few organizations. Canon was also experimenting with something similar, returning generated answers grounded in the index content coupled with some products. So overall, we've seen not just chatbots becoming more popular and doing interesting things. We've also seen search becoming increasingly conversational and generative. And so the question is really, do we need them both? And what's kind of the relationship between these two? And so I find that there is a bit of a problem. And the real problem, I think, is that it doesn't look like the best experience for the shopper, because we have one shopper, one intent, one query, one moment, and we have two experiences with search and these chatbots. And so if they are the same, if they're similar enough, these experiences, while one could argue that they're quite, one is redundant, really, and if they're sufficiently different instead, well, that looks a bit confusing. And what I mean is kind of represented here by looking at Advance, which launched their chatbot last year. And so you can see that I'm searching for black tote bag using search and the chatbot. And I could pick other queries to make the contrast more evident. But still, you get the point. So it's quite a different experience for the shopper. So we have these two parallel discovery interfaces. And I think that there's an argument that can be made to the fact that this risks becoming confusing for the shopper that doesn't really know where to start the discovery, like we search the chatbot, and which channel to trust. So on top of that, there is also the problem that for the business, that means having to kind of discovery interfaces that need to be measured, that need to be maintained, need to be controlled. So I do appreciate, of course, that this is ultimately an empirical question. And I also know that if we look at the PR around it, we can find some big statistics like Macy's claiming big uplifts after the launch of the chatbot. there were also some big statistics associated with Amazon roofers. Now, absolutely, this is an empirical question, so I'm looking forward to reading more kind of detailed analysis on the matter. Also, one historical antecedent, and I think it's quite interesting. Now, there used to be big claims around the value that Amazon product recommendations were driving to in terms of revenue for Amazon. So that McKinsey statistic, like over 35% of Amazon revenue coming from recommendation. And then what happened is that a number of academic papers were actually using sophisticated causal inference methods to actually make the point that that was not additional revenue, but sort of cannibalization. It was revenue that would have come anyways through channels like search. So I'm here. I'm looking forward to reading about what these chatbots are adding in terms of value, but also there are kind of interesting antecedents. And in the meantime, I'm going to invoke Ockham's razor. So entities shouldn't be multiplied if they're not necessary. And so I'm also suggesting that we shouldn't multiply discovery interfaces if they're not necessary. So this is what I'm going to suggest in the meantime. And I'm not making an argument for search as it was, but more for search as it could be, or maybe should be. And this is not a chapter that has been written yet. It's more like a chapter that is work in progress. And there is a ton of interesting experimentation, ongoing work. And so Sainsbury, for example, is testing something quite interesting. So they're trying not to have a search and a chatbot in parallel. They're trying to make their search more conversational. Now, regrettably, when I tried the experience, it was not really working that well. So a long way to go. Like, show me ingredients for banoffee pie. So I don't think that I was served the right kind of answer. Now, there are other kind of interesting projects. There is other experimentation that is interesting. Now, this is Daydream. And they also don't have search and chatbots in parallel. So what they're trying to do seems to be more like replacing search with chat. Now, they also have some kind of discovery tags in a way, some filtering options. But for those like me that kind of grew accustomed to sort by price and rich filtering, there seems to be something missing there. So when I'm thinking about the future of search and conversation, there seem to be three main areas that need to be kept in mind for innovation. One is, of course, conversational needs to be able to handle multiple types of intent, queries with constraints, comparisons, but also not forgetting about kind of sorting by non-relevance, like sort by price, and also providing a wealth of filtering options. Then adaptive UI, now, because I mentioned we're kind of adding new types of intents, like comparisons, and that also means that it's not just about understanding intent, but it's also about rendering the right experience for the shopper. So having adaptive, flexible, dynamic interfaces also becomes increasingly important, because if I'm asking for a comparison, it's not just about like a list of bullets, I'm expecting a comparison table. So adaptive UI becomes increasingly important. And then latency management. One of the main problems we encounter is it's still very slow. So making slow AI more acceptable for shoppers, I think, is a priority. So that's like a very active area of research. And I also wanted to suggest that I don't want to be overly dogmatic here. So I don't want to say that chat really has no place. I do believe that there are cases where it can add value. For example, on a product detail page, I'm kind of further down my buying journey, and I may still have some questions about the product, about compatibility, about certifications. And so being able to ask specific questions, not using like an open-ended discovery, but with a sort of chat box or bubble embedded on a PDP, looks like a very interesting way of addressing that need. And so this is Home Depot, but there are many other organizations that are testing these sorts of experiences. So again, don't want to be overly dogmatic, but yeah, so I do believe that the future of conversation is not just about having search and chatbots coexisting. And I also wanted to mention that kind of the philosophy of product discovery that I've outlined today is also aligned with what we're trying to build at Coveo. So we're trying to take search, make it more conversational, and trying to make sure that shoppers can get relevant answers for all their intent. So again, that was it for today. So I hope it was interesting. Looking forward to questions, reactions, feedback.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Do you have any questions to our speaker?
So thank you for the talk. So perhaps the two interfaces, I heard you loudly, it's a good point, but there are also different personas. Yeah? So if I think of my kids, so they are constantly acting with ChatGPT. Perhaps it's the upcoming expectation of the next generation, which is different than us. We were educated by Google. That you have a conversational AI instead of, and then it's a coexistence and perhaps two different entry points, rather than showing both interfaces at the same time.
No, I mean that's excellent point, and of course I'm not so young, so I do come with my biases. But the idea is not to just look at search how we used to be. So it's trying to take it and make it more conversational. But I do think that there is value in having things like sorting and kind of rich filtering. So again, I'm seeing that there is an ongoing innovation and experiment. So I do think that you can take search and make it more conversational. So it's kind of not doing a terrible job when it's coming to addressing the needs of younger generations. But so yeah, it's not a contrast. It's more like the problem of having these two separate parallel discovery interfaces. So I think that there are pragmatic reasons why it's easy to experiment with chatbots. But I also, Frasers, just to give you an example, and Vans, they keep adding the chatbot and switching it off. So I don't know the full story behind it, but it tells me that maybe they're trying to refine. But yeah, absolutely great point.
Further questions to Andrea? Then let's thank our speaker again.
Thanks, Mike.
Very inspirational talk.